We start in Belgrade, Serbia, as a woman trades a case with a cigarette-smoking man. And I don't mean that bloke from the X-Files what impregnated Gillian Anderson with an alien sprog. Then we cut to a private party in the Berkshires, Massachusetts. The same woman is there from the opening scene, and apparently her name is Serena, and she proceeds to invite a young chap called Joey to meet the mysterious Roland Voigt. Inside his trophy room, a mysterious item is laid out on the central display. Apparently, this is a puzzle box, and as Mr. Roland explains, it's totally unique and one of a kind. Just like that Egyptian vase I knocked over during my visit to the Natural History Museum last week, and now I keep getting followed around by some burned up guy with bandages. Anyway, he encourages Joey to solve it, because then Roland will totally get a prize. And after solving the easiest on-screen puzzle since the IQ test scene in Idiocracy, Joey gets pricked by a surprise pop-up blade and naturally tries to get the F out of Dodge. But this Roland fella's only gone and locked all the doors, as this chap goes all woozy until frigging chain shoots into his knee from Straight Outta Compton. Oh sorry, I mean hell. Or maybe I was right the first time.
Bruh.
Roland then places the puzzle box, which is now totally a puzzle spear thing, onto the plinth and pleads for an audience with the gods. Meanwhile, that poor Joey sap is getting BDSM'd in the background and has clearly forgot his safe word. Then the title card appears and we smash cut to the main protagonist called Riley, who apparently takes 6 years to shag her boyfriend Trevor. Unless that's just the most confusingly placed title card in cinematic history. I mean, I know it takes girls ages to come, but that's just taking the fucking piss, son. The pair enter the kitchen whilst her Asian roommate Nora makes tapas and totally tries to avoid eye contact, given everyone totally heard them all shagging like Katie Price in Heat. Oops. Her brother Matt worries that this Trevor fella may be a stallion in the bedroom, but seems like a bad influence given they're both in the 12-step program for addiction-y things and keeps shagging like rabbits in his own damn house. A fear which turns out to be well-founded, as the next day, Trevor wants to rob an abandoned warehouse of a mysterious shipment that never seems to get claimed. You see, they're both totally broke, and of course these junkies need money like naughty nuns need confessions. So they smash into a safe in a shipping container in a warehouse and find a box within a box within a box. Naturally, they're disappointed because they wanted a bit of doshin shit, or at least something funky to sell. Later, Riley returns home, but her brother chucks her out because she said she was clean but is clearly filthier than a hooker's hanky. Outside, she dumps her pills in the street but then picks them back out off the road and gobbles them up because reasons. And depression, I guess. So she sits and does a puzzle box on a little kiddie's roundabout, also because reasons, and proceeds to twist it till she fingers the hole and sets it off. Steady. And a dagger thing misses her skin by bloody inches. Suddenly it gets bare windy. We're talking windier than a Piers Morgan interview on GMB. But unlike Piers Morgan on GMB, this place is not full of hot air, as it seems to get really frigging cold. So she does a bit of spinning to warm herself up, as suddenly a monstrous apparition appears, pissed off that Riley didn't get nicked by that blade, so now they want someone else's soul to be sacrificed. Like her homosexual brother for some reason. Said homosexual brother eventually finds his sis in the playground passed out on pills after playing with her new toy, and soon gets his second prick of the evening, though this time by that blade on the cube when trying to save her. His blood seeps in and the cube reconfigures, as he goes into the bathroom to wash the blood off his hands. He knows something's a bit off though, because his reflection doesn't change in the mirror, and also because the toilet walls all become a giant fuck-off door with ominous lighting. So, after becoming a literal hellraiser, Riley watches the puzzle box reconfigure into a hexagonal diamondy shape, before hearing Matt's blood-curdling screams, but by the time she enters the box, he's totally gone. The next morning, no one believes her when she says he went into a public toilet and was never seen again, even though that's exactly what happened to George Michael's career back in 1998. Later, she's having more sex whilst being haunted by spindly lanky geezers watching her come. Which sounds like a standard Tuesday night for an OnlyFans model, to be fair. Anyway, she explains the cube to Trevor, and though he believes her, he wants nothing to do with a strange exotic cube what seems to kidnap people whenever they go about molesting it. But they then go to see who owns the warehouse where the box was delivered to, given nobody showed up to claim it or ever reported it missing. They pay a visit to that Serena bird, aka the woman from the opening sequence, who is now older with breathing difficulties and seemingly dying from bad lungs and shit. She said it was locked up for a reason because it's so utterly dangerous. So why she didn't just lob it down to the bottom of the ocean, I don't know. Anyway, they eventually get into a tussle when Serena takes it to lock it up again. And in said tussle, she gets nipped and the box reconfigures to the next stage, as Serena soon gets thrust into a bizarre dimension full of grotesque icky demons with fucked up skin. Yes, exactly like a realm full of current day Madonnas. They tell her to be quiet and to save your breath for screaming. Which is exactly what my doctor said to me when I went in for that backroom penis enlargement op over in Turkey and tried to ask him some basic questions about the procedure. But thinking about it, I'm starting to wonder if Dr. Bigger PP for You is on the up and up.
Bruh.
Anyway, they figure out that the previous victims are all linked to that rich guy from the opening, reminding us that those scenes seem to have taken place 6 years ago. Riley finds his address, but she and Trevor have a Barney on the stairs, so she goes to see this Roland fella solo, even though she's literally just linked him to 4 or 5 mysterious disappearances within the last few years. At his estate, she finds the house is built like a giant cube and so naturally climbs inside, because nothing bad has ever happened from messing with cubes up until now in this movie. She turns on the power and we discover it's the same trophy room as the opening. Exploring the connecting offices, she finds dozens of drawings of the lanky, icky demon creatures, as well as a notebook providing much needed expo dumps. Apparently, these creatures are called Cenobites and are, quote, horribly mutilated beyond what any human beings can withstand. Almost as much as that human Ken doll fella what was on Big Brother a few years ago.
Bruh.
A little later, she hears someone calling her name and somehow finds her missing brother downstairs, before she realises his back is flogged worse than a middle-class white woman beating herself up over her own privilege, and he totally wants her to bring him back. Suddenly, her friends arrive and snap her out of the delusion, as they're all brought up to speed on being haunted by spindly lanky peeps, with a worse case of peeling skin than an Essex girl addicted to sunbeds. Soon enough, the Asian roommate with no other defining traits or characteristics accidentally reveals a hidden passage by messing with some buttons, before the notebook dumps some more expo and tells us that the puzzle box has 6 sides and 6 configurations. There are 3 left at this point, and whoever possesses the final configuration is granted an audience with God via a passage to another realm. And oh, I've heard that before. Last time I was offered passage to another realm, I had to have my stomach pumped due to those E's totally being Calgon dishwasher tablets. Anyway, if you do manage to get said audience with God, he then offers some choices, i.e. whatever you desire. And oh, I know what I'd ask for. A giant fuck-off Toblerone and 1 day's relief from these fucking piles. Meanwhile, the Asian roommate with no other discernible traits or characteristics gets herself locked inside the walls. But before our boy Trev can get her out, Riley ominously warns that you have to mark a sacrifice to get the puzzle box to reconfigure, before some monster guy does exactly that by stabbing her with said puzzle box and marking her as the next sacrifice. The group try to drive to the hospital, but because they're in a heavily Democrat-run state who don't invest in highway repairs, giant sinkholes keep opening up in the roads around them. They soon get lost as the surroundings also seem to change around them, as Nora, the Asian roommate with no other discernible traits or characteristics, finds herself helplessly transported to the Hell Dimension, where she's soon chained up by a spiky fella with pins in its head. These sadomasochistic pain revelers reckon heaven's boring because there's never any change or growth. Kinda like a one-note song with no rise or fall. Or, in other words, your standard Nickelback album. They soon realise that Nora, their Asian roommate with no other discernible traits or characteristics, is totally gone, and so decide to crash their car into a tree. Having just about had enough of all her friends and family being ripped to shreds by literal fucked up monsters because she molested a cube in a children's playground at 2 a.m, Riley goes to throw the box in the river, until this pinhead fella says if she just pokes 2 more saps, she can totally have her brother back. Riley's a bit hesitant, so they totally cheat and spike her to ensure that she now has no choice but to continue unlocking the configurations. They then send a few Cenobite lackeys after her to further force her hand, and trapped, it looks like she's about to make a decision to doom her boyfriend forever. But at the last minute, she shrewdly stabs the monster itself. And in a cunning twist, what also feels like a total cheat, it actually works to sacrifice the demon thing in need of serious dentistry, and the box reconfigures to the penultimate stage. The monsters keep coming, and so the group lock themselves in that giant puzzle box estate, in which the interdimensional magical baddies, what can totally teleport, can't seem to enter for some reason that's never explained. And they then try to wait out a bunch of immortal demons. Later, we find out that Trevor was in on it all along, and the whole plan was to mark Riley because Rich Dick Roland has some sort of heart contraction thing which really tickles and he desperately wants gone. And so he demands that Trevor finishes the last configuration ASAP so he can be granted audience with the gods to remove it, because bloody hell, it half stings. So after stopping to think about the situation for a bit, their cunning yet hilariously naive plan is to actually now let one in so they can stab up another Cento, and not have to sacrifice any of their friends. Happy days! After taunting the High Priestess by practically saying, "Come get me, bro," they lure one of her minions into the building and lock the rest out. And this one seems to have some sort of breathing disability, which makes me think it's that Serena bird from back in Act 1, but now just horribly twisted and maimed like she was the first patient of a practicing junior doctor in the NHS. Anyway, the killer monster gets trapped between the gates just as Riley accidentally drops the box. Unfortunately though, Roland grabs it and marks Colin as the final sacrifice. Roland reveals the truth about Trevor to Riley because Roland totally paid him to send peeps to hell just so he could say hello to a bunch of torture porn pain demons. Turns out Roland wanted a lifetime of pleasure, but they only offered pain. Why he couldn't just get married to experience that, I don't know. So naturally, they stick him with a contraption what twists all the nerves in his body and tugs on them in random cycles, but just enough to not fully go numb. Having finally been fed its final victim, the box turns into the Leviathan configuration, as the doomed Colin tries to flee as a portal opens above. Roland then traps the Cenobites in his elaborate house, which turns out to be a giant cage constructed especially to contain them. Riley steals the Leviathan back and unlocks the doors, before Pinhead slowly approaches Roland, who basically says he's too much of a pussyhole to wear this achy thing on his chest for 6 years. Ooh, it's an half itchy. So he gets on his knees and begs to die like a riot cack. But she reckons gifts can't be ungiven, only exchanges made. Luckily, Riley's totally up for a trade and so stabs Trevor and they let the gay bloke go. Because although the Cenobites are soulless monsters, they also champion diversity, and don't particularly want to indulge in any more of the bury your gays trope and get slaughtered on Tumblr for the next few weeks. Roland also gets to be free of his chest wound before hilariously being chained up again only seconds later. Before ascending into the Hell Dimension, as apparently they have such sights to show him. Or something like that. With Trevi Boy dead and the puzzle box complete, they offer her the gift of resurrection, aka the Lazarus configuration. But alas, she don't want her brother back because he's clearly dead and gone, and she knows their rewards are dodgy as fuck, so he'd probably come back as a brainless zombie or with dyslexia or something. So she chooses a lament configuration, and a life of bitterness, briefness and regret, aka the Charlie Sheen configuration.
I was banging 7-gram rocks, that's how I roll. Winning, I had 1 gear, go, epic winning.
And we end on the horrifying image of Roland being stripped bare, rather literally, and becoming a perverse image of God. And that's it. That's the plot, and that's your lot. Though my favourite part was when they were transported to that Hell Dimension. And no, not Chicago. Anyway, consider ringing that bell thing so you don't miss any future recaps. Tell me if you like this flick in the comments if you have time, and I'll see you in the next one.